Good morning. This week's episode of Cars, Stars, and Roll Bars. We kind of get the pulse of the culture of hot rodding, celebrities, racing, everything that's going on that's got tires underneath it. And there's a few people I kind of put on my extra cool list. Actually, if you go to Wikipedia and you Google really extra cool guys, you're going to probably see one name and one name only. That is Carson with Redphin Productions. Carson, man, we've been working on this for about, 2 months. It is so great to have you on the show. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks. I think the search engines don't quite optimize to my name, but I appreciate the endorsement.
And to give everybody a quick thumbnail, Carson and I go back so far. I think you remember me when I had black hair. And we have done SEMA, we've been at Playboy Mansion. I flew halfway, no exaggeration, halfway around the world to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, pre-COVID, for a giant motorsports event. Take a shuttle to the event location about the size of 10 football fields. And the first guy I run into, Carson left. And we said, of course this is what's going to happen, right? You know?
That was a pretty amazing event. I mean, that was pretty amazing, yeah.
And the people there were they were nice and just friendly. And I enjoyed the experience. Kind of a long airplane ride. Okay, this week's episode, we're going to take a little different approach. With Carson, I can't do a lot of structure because when he and I get together, my gerbil brain goes, fortunately, Carson sent us a whole pile of pictures, so we're going to kind of have this picturegram, if you will, of things that have happened. So I think we've got some great pictures from when you've been racing. And Rick, if you can pull, I think the very first one up, this is back when diggers are in the day. And I think you're like right behind the fence, right?
That is me. My guess is I'm about 12 or 13 in the jacket right to the right, just above the injectors. That's the old Enriquez and Adams Junior Fueler, which is a great car. The crew guys running alongside. That's me behind the fence at Lions. My youth was spent at Lions. I'll say the long story, but my mom worked on Saturday, single mom. So she dropped me off at Lions every morning. So I met Mickey Thompson, Ed Iskandarian, and Wally Parks. But anyway, the interesting thing that I look at that picture, the first thing I think is, man, that's back in the days when we were so proud not to cover our ears.
Yes, sir.
And I'm standing there smiling, and I'm not covering my ears. I know why my hearing is gone now, but yeah, Lions was a big part of my youth, and I met a lot of people. I didn't realize at the time I was walking around legends, Mickey Thompson and Wally Parks, and
oh my goodness,
Matthew Hart. I mean, I got so many stories, and a lot of my buddies in the area in Lakewood where I grew up they were drag racers. Their dads were builders or owners or, painters. Kenny Youngblood, I hung out at his shop, and Ed Roth. And so I was just deep in that culture.
That's excellent. So, Rick, pull up the next, and then we'll kind of alternate between it. So, all right, so let's get Carson back on screen. How did you guys pull that off? Because that is a gorgeous wrap. And to get her on a funny car, you did some stuff, man.
This is a cool story. He was into Speedway, and his brother had a bike too, and so I had a chance to ride some Speedway stuff. And when I was going out of Speedway motorcycle, it was when Bruce Penhall was coming in.
Right.
Bruce Penhall, world champion of Speedway motorcycles, world champion in offshore boat racing, and he wanted to have a third world championship. The only guy 3 automotive-based world championships, and so he hooked up with Alan Johnson and Gary Stelzy and Bruce Sarver with the Hot Wheels funny car, or with the Imola funny car team. They also ran a Winston Top Fuel car that Gary won the championship. So Bruce calls me at Hot Wheels one day. He says, "Hey man, I haven't talked to you in a while. How are you doing?" "Great. What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to get my NHRA license." "Cool." He goes, "I want to see if I can get a Hot Wheels sponsorship." I said, "I don't do sponsorships. I'm in charge of licensing and design and engineering." He goes, "Well, can you point me in the right direction?" So I go to our legal guys. And really what he offers is, "Hey, let me put a 2-foot long Hot Wheels logo on the side of this car, and I'll give it to you for free just for old time's sake." He says, "It'll help you, it'll help me," but he goes, "I need to make it look like this car's sponsored so I can get money." So kind of like, priming the pump kind of thing. So I said, all right. So I went to legal. Great people in the legal department. I've always had a good relationship with them. They said, "Well, if you want to write it up within your department, go ahead, we'll cover it." So we went through all the legal stuff, and Mattel's got lots of lawyers, got it all done. I called Bruce back the next day. "I got a 2-foot logo. I can do that for free, no problem. We'll even bring some cars down to the track, some toy cars, and have some fun with you."
Yeah.
"Well, things have changed." I go, "What changed?" He goes, "I need it to be a bigger logo. We need to fill some space. Can we do 4 foot?" I go, "Hang on." So I go back to legal, and they go, "Well, It's free. Well, you know where this story's going.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, about a week later, he calls me and said, look, can we just have a giant Hot Wheels logo on the side of this thing? I said, if it doesn't cost me money.
Yeah.
So we were there. That was the winter. That was the finals. That was the closest race the whole year against John Force in the final. They came up just a little bit short. Bruce Harper was the pilot driving it. Alan Johnson was the tuner. And we got that giant logo, and it's crazy. The next week, my phone was blown up. But Perdomo, guys I've known forever, Perdomo and Kenny Bernstein, dude, why didn't you call me? I would have done that. I go, no, we didn't pay money. They go, oh, come on. I go, no, that was free.
Nice.
So we got like 5 minutes of airtime on TV.
Oh, yeah.
A giant commercial for Hot Wheels. And it really kind of shows that this sport's really driven sometimes more by people than it is by other aspects.
And that's a great observation. It's just like, I grew up in NHRA in stock car and doing the 8th mile and quarter mile that I announced forever. And I think there's something very special about the NHRA community, because this started out, the shade tree mechanic, the backyard guy using a big tree limb to yank your motor. So I think a lot of that still, there's some corporate feel to it, because by definition it just takes so much to run all this. But I think there's still so many just handshakes with a cup of coffee. Let's pull something together. Yeah,
that was a fun experience.
That's funny. And so, Rick, I think we have another shot. Okay, now it looks like Top Fuel, and I'm not able to zoom in all the way. I think that might know the driver being you. What's up with that?
So everything. I'm very lucky, but everything has a story, it seems like. So, I grew up with drag racing. I always wanted to be in drag racing. Had a buddy whose dad had a Top Fuel car, and when he switched off the old car to a new car, he offered it to us. If we paid for the motor, he'd let us drive it. Well, I didn't have any money at the time, and I always look back on that. Man, I should have, could have, would have, Yeah. So for years, I lived this wanderlust thing of thinking standing at the starting line watching my buddies race, thinking I could do that. Well, I'm talking to Tom McEwen one day, Snake and Mongoose. Yep. I've known those guys since I was 12. And this opportunity, talking about doing it, and he said, well, geez, if you would do that, he was at Drag Racing Magazine at the time. He goes, if you would do that, I might be able to get you into Frank Hawley School. If you'll write a story for me, I'll pay for you to go to Frank Hawley Drag Racing School. I'm like, well, why would I not do that, right?
Oh, my gosh.
So he covered me to go to, the magazine covered me to go there. Right. My instructor was Jack Beckman, who's become a great friend and client of mine now. Jack drove the Infinite Hero car for Schumacher. So anyway, so my first license was in Supercomp. I made the mistake of when you stated your goals, because I'm that way. Jack wanted to know what everybody's goals were. And I said, my goal is to get a license in 1 day, and it's a 2-day class. Right. And Jack said, I can count on my hand the number of guys that have got a license in 1 day. Carson, I don't think I'm going to go to the other hand. Then he would tease me and say, oh, you'll do fine. It's just like playing those little Hot Wheels cars. And so he would kind of mock me and tease me. Well, there was a couple times I had to go to the bleachers and have a talk with myself, but I ended up getting my license within a day.
No way. Very cool.
So then I started writing this story about my Top Fuel fantasy, and you can find it on the internet about what happens when a regular guy gets in a Top Fuel car. And I talk the story. I tell where I messed up, and I burned the clutch on my first try. Anyway, so I'm writing the story, and at the NHRA banquet, we're giving Don Prudhomme a trophy for his 40 years in drag racing, his original yellow funny car, and then we did a future version. I'm giving it to him, but I don't have a camera to take a picture. This team comes up to me and says, oh, we know who you are from Hot Wheels. We're Todd Payton and Barry Payton. Alex Freer is driving for them now. And they said, well, we'll take a picture for you, but we want a copy. So I said, okay. So they said, well, why are you here? What are you doing? And I told them where I was. And they said, well, we heard you're writing a story. Do you want to sit in a Top Fuel car? I said, well, all I've done is Supercomp, and I made a couple passes in a buddy's alcohol car, never licensed fully. They said, we'll put you in the Top Fuel car. So that car is the Todd Payton, Barry Payton family car. That's in Vegas in 2005, I think. Right. And I was lucky enough to get in that car and make a burnout. I had a problem with the clutch and couldn't get it back into gear and had to shut it off. My daughter reminded me that my youngest daughter is my hot rod kid. They're all great kids. She's a hot rod kid. Sweet. She reminded me that, because I was very upset that they didn't get make a pass. She goes, Dad, you have the most unrealistic expectations. How many of your friends just would want to sit in one of these cars at idle, and yet you got to do a burnout, and now you're complaining you're not fully licensed in 1 day. So I'm like, So yeah, that's I have a picture in my office of that.
Oh, that's
a
stunning.
stylized version that John Bell did, and the tag on it, my wife gave it to me. It says 40-year dream, because I dreamed of doing that when I was 12. I got to do it when I was 52.
Very cool. Yeah, you mentioned Jack Mackman real quick, because I had the pleasure. I've been the auctioneer and MC for Speedway Children's Charities. We used to do a poker tournament around the NHRA races here in town, and Jack sitting across from me playing poker for the charity tournament, Texas Hold'em. And I saw him over the weekend, the pits. He goes, "I'll never play poker with you again." Because I got a little read on him. I says, if I could play poker as good as you drive, we'd both be happy. But it was,
he's become a good friend and a client.
He's a good guy.
I do pinstriping and lettering. I was able to letter and do a helmet for him, a couple of helmets for him, one for his son. And he's such a nice guy. He gave me his fire suit at the end of the season. So I have the extra helmet and his fire suit on display in my bonus room. So some fun stuff.
So here's what's going to happen. I already know where this show's going. We're going to have part 1 and part 2. And part 2 might, we'll figure out how to get on the dance card because Carson is uber busy. So Rick, pull up the stuff on Hot Wheels, because you were with Hot Wheels for many years, and then you got a chance to be with Larry Wood, and and there is one of my uber favorite cars of all the time. That's the Twin Mill. I've been there when you fired it. I tried to drive it, and you explained to me the insurance doesn't work that way. You had it out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Now, Rick, pull Carson back up on screen. So over the years, I've also been the charity auctioneer. I've shot 4 different shows at the SEMA Show for different production companies. And every year, Carson would have like a Twin Mill or the Dior whom would be there. And so we would get in early. Now, Baron, I think we're past any statutory limitations. We can probably talk about it. So you can't fire vehicles inside the SEMA Show. No. We go in early because we're media. And I would be doing my B-roll and then a little bit of coverage of the latest thing that Hot Wheels had brought. And so Carson's goal was to see if he could rev the motor loud enough you couldn't hear me anymore. Do you remember that?
It's funny because we were told emphatically that it had to be less than a quarter tank of gas, had to be locker tape, cannot have a live ignition, disconnect the battery. I've heard numbers of like a $50,000 fine or more to start during the SEMA Show, and the fire marshal is the one who runs that. Well, maybe the statute of limitations have expired, but the fire marshal came to me 7 times during that week and asked me to start the car for him. Can you start it one more time? So that car, the history that's unique. So when I first worked at Mattel, I actually worked in the Disney Entertainment Division. That's the first job I had, running worldwide engineering. But the guy who hired me said, "Look, the Hot Wheels job is going to become available. That's the job I want you to have." So I went from engineering and took over design.
Wow.
So when I took over when I went for the interview with the head of design, a good guy and a good friend of mine, John Handy, who was a senior VP of Boys Toys, after the interview said, "Carson, do you have any other questions?" I said, "Well, John, what happened to the Twin Mill?" Because it started at Boyd's. When Boyd's went bankrupt, it was rescued out in the middle of the night so they could get it out of there. And it sat in the back for about 18 months under a tarp. Wow. And John said, "Well, what's your point?" I said, "John, the Twin Mill is the first originally designed Hot Wheels car. The first couple of years, it was Barracudas and Camaros and Mustangs. That was designed by Ira Guilford, who's a real well-known guy. His son's a production designer, great guy." I said, "That's our history." He goes, "Okay, it's your project." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're going to get it finished." I go, "Well, what's my budget?" He goes, and he looks at me, he goes, "You don't have a budget, but you got lots of enthusiasm." So I called my buddy Chip Foose. I said, how do I build a car that I don't have money for? And he said, "Well, in the old days, Championship Auto Show used to pay for like the Red Baron and cars like that, Red Raw." So I called Bob Larrabee Jr., God rest his soul, he passed away a few years ago. I'm called Junior. And worked out a deal where they gave us some seed money. We gave them some Hot Wheels. They paid for the building it. I managed that project through. I got it done. We debuted at SEMA, and it was the hit of the show. I wasn't going to drive that car right into the exhibit space and park it. We're Hot Wheels. I wanted people to realize that my silly thing, and I could go into this story all day long, was, look, if we're going to take that car to SEMA, which I wanted to do, and they all thought it was crazy. They're all like, "It's not a licensing show. It's not a toy show." I go, "It's tongue-in-cheek. We're the world's coolest car company. We got to have the world's coolest car. We make more cars in a year than all the other car companies combined. Ours just happen to be a little smaller."
A little smaller.
So I said, "I don't want to just take the car and plop it down in the middle of the show. I want to make like products like wheels and tires and clothing. You can see some of the prototype wheels there, and tools and car wax." So I made all these mock-ups. They gave me the permission to go to all my designers, and they all did designs. Then I came back and said, can I build some prototypes of these things, just have on display that? So they let me do that. So I kept pushing my luck. So when we displayed the car, it really looked like we were a fully functional automotive licensing company, although I was only running design at that time. So by the time the show was over, Mother's Wax came to me and said, we didn't know you were doing car wax. Can we license that? Wheel Company, KMC, Apparel, Pit Pass. So I had signed 4 licensing deals in the days of SEMA by having that car there. When I came back from SEMA, I was running design and licensing. So that's the car that kind of put me into licensing. Yeah. It's a fully functional car, 2 502s. The transfer case was made by a company that made the transfer cases for tractor pulls. We made 8 laps around the NASCAR track at NASCAR and 2 passes down the drag strip. But what I was going to get to is the day we pulled it in, the first day, I was told emphatically by my boss and by legal and risk assessment, the people that look for risk in business, you are not to drive this car in the street. You will drive that car in the booth. We had a camera crew there, our house people.
Right.
And I looked at them, I said, so there's no way I'm just driving this in.
No.
I may get fired, but I cannot do it. So we drove down the Vegas Strip. I passed 2 policemen. The first one gives me the thumbs up, like, that is awesome, because you're in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
The next one is I get out on Vegas Boulevard. He's just swinging his leg over his motorcycle after writing a ticket. And he turns around and looks at me, and he gives me this, like, how do I write a ticket for you being stupid? And then as I go by, he just goes, he puts his hand up and turns his head.
I love it.
So we pulled it into the booth. It's overheating. It's puking antifreeze.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I'm a goof. There's no way I'm just going to park that thing in there. Come on.
Well, I remember when you had Twin Mill at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and for the viewers, up I'm in the tower working as an announcer, and the guys, they're lining the cars that they beat on the window for me. He says, hey guys, some guys down there waving, screaming at you. So I had to stop to say hi to Carson, which was cool. Because, when you had it in the pits, man, then when you brought it up to the line, everybody stopped what they're doing to watch this because it's an iconic car. It's truly one of a kind. And I think it had like a starter for a helicopter or something on it.
Yes, it does. It has a Bell Huey helicopter, a 36-volt. It looked like a washing machine motor. It's about an 8-inch diameter with a shaft. And the way it worked is both those motors, the firewall was the coupler plate. It's about an inch and a half thick piece of steel. And the flywheels were countersunk into that. On the other side of that, right between your legs, is the starter motor. When you push the button, all 3 batteries engage, 36 volts, it fires up. Then the minute it fires up, that solenoid pulls back and it switches off the solenoid to 12 volt. Both the motors are hard linked together. So it's 2 flywheels and a bunch of planetary gears. So if you don't have fuel to one motor, it's going to turn over anyway. Yeah. There's no way to clutch them in or out. It has a torque flight transmission. It was built in Boyd's. The body was done by a buddy of mine at Prototype Express, who I went to design school with, a guy named Bruce Brackman. He built the body. So, yeah, I'll tell you one thing, it does amazing burnouts.
So, yeah, I can attest to that, because just for the viewers, because both engines fired at the same time, right?
Yes, right.
Which is also kind of different. Because a lot of times when you see twins, they'd fire one, then have a little slippage, they could fire the other one. You got the whole load as soon as you hit the go button.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we have another example of Mr. Leb's slight, madness in the universe and what we can pull up. Yeah. Now, walk us through this. This is truly
a work of art. Too.
Yes.
So the Twin Mill was done for the 35th anniversary. This one was done for the Hot Wheels Hall of Fame. And actually, Jay Leno and I drove up together in that for the Hot Wheels Hall of Fame. He was our host and great guy for me, good friend.
Yeah.
So this car was designed by Nathan Proch. It's a modern version of the original Diora, too. The original Diora. The original Diora was designed by the Alexander brothers.
Right.
And it was real square and real edgy. But it was a cab-forward design, surfboards on the back, and Hot Wheels made it the first year, called Diora, which is slang for gold. Sweet. Anyway, Nathan Proch, amazing designer. When I was in head of design for all the racing, collectible and stuff like that, Nathan ran the design group for the basic cars, so the dollar cars. So this is Nathan's design. So for the next anniversary for the Hall of Fame, we wanted to have another full-scale car. This car, the Twin Mill took about, 4 or 5 years to build.
Yeah.
This car took 24 weeks.
Really?
Built by Troy Sumitomo at 5-axis. Chip Foose was our design manager on the project.
Right.
The thing that streamlined that is we looked at it and we said, let's get a front-wheel drive V8 motor and slide it to the back and build a new chassis outriggers to the front. That was a Cadillac North Star that was donated by GM. They gave us one of theirs, so we did that. We didn't cut any wires, so everything worked well. Wow. Built a chassis. We scanned in. This is funny. Usually, real cars become toys. You take a real car and you scan it down to make a toy. This went the other way. We took one of the Dioras in 18 scale. I got one of the prototypes here. In 18 scale, we scanned it, blew it up, built a mold, made a mold for one car, like a sacrificial female mold, laid it up, had a 15-foot gantry to cut this giant foam mold. Troy then laid up the epoxy inside of it and then chipped it away like Fred Flintstone until the body was left, and that became the Diora kit. And so that debuted at SEMA also. Same thing. But yeah, that project was, by then technology had caught up. You know, you could do scanning, you could do digitizing, you could do prototyping. When the twin mill started, we didn't have that. So another fun project. We took it to SEMA, got tons of press and PR. I mean, it's kind of a man bites dog story when a toy car shows up at SEMA. We kind of had to be careful, kind of tongue in cheek. But the cool thing was, most of my friends, if they're car guys, they had a Hot Wheels relationship somewhere in their life.
And they got it. And if I remember, you and I were sitting in Diora 2 together. Wasn't it hinged at the top and it opened from the front?
The front opens up clamshell. Yes.
Yeah, because we go to record, so I'm sitting inside. So again, I'm talking to my favorite buddy right here who's on the show today. I said, okay, man, you're going to hear me go 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is Mike Kinney here at the SEMA Show. And then go ahead and start opening up the front. Carson didn't do it. And so he's just sitting there watching. You were just seeing how long I was going to keep going with the lid shut. So I appreciate that, buddy.
We did sometimes play tricks where we would close the lid and then turn the battery off and let people sit in the glass, the fishbowl, just for fun.
So,
not that we're mischievous that way or anything.
You would never be that. And talking about fun, so for all of our viewers, a lot of us own companies, we work for companies. So if you have Carson Lev working for your company and say, Carson, we've got a little bit of a budget. We need to redo a conference room. Rick, have you got a picture of what happens when there you go. What in the world happened here?
I was talking to one of my buddies the other day that there's guys who build careers by never saying yes to new projects and only doing what's on your plate and doing that well. Yeah. I was that guy that I couldn't say no to new projects.
Exactly.
So my boss, John Handy, who authorized me, who hired me to be from the Disney division of Mattel when I went to Hot Wheels, came to me and said, look, Carson, we need to build some new offices in here. I need you to just run this project with our construction crew. We have an inside construction guys. And I need a conference room. I need a work table, and I need 2 offices. I said, okay, does it have to look like the standard cubicles we're building? He goes, what's your point? I said, John, we're Hot Wheels. We don't want to build cubicles that look like a dentist office. Come on. He goes, what do you think? I said, I want to build a gas station. He goes, wait, you want to build a fully functional gas station inside here? I said, no, not functional. Come on. I want to build it, but think about it. The work area would be the conference room. The table in front where the pumps are would be your work table. The 2 offices inside. He goes, if you can do that at the same price of regular construction, go ahead and do it.
Dude.
So I went to our facilities manager at the time and said, look, I got kind of a crazy request, but it could really help you and build your career, some notoriety, in the corporate world. I want to build a gas station. And he said to me, if you'll draw it up and design it, I'll get quotes and I'll do my best to keep it. We did it within budget. We had a giant neon sign on top. We had these, gas pumps. The cool thing was, I do gas pump and Coke machine restoration, so I did all the graphics on the gas pump.
Nice.
One says high test design, one says no knock design.
Nice.
So, now, here's a funny anecdotal story. In the picture, just to the, in between the gas pump and the tire, is a rack of oil cans.
Oh, sweet.
Every Hot Wheels designer got to design their own oil can. Their own company, their own label, whatever they wanted to. And I got mine that said Midnight Oil because I'm famous for working late. And everybody did their own.
Cool.
The deal was this. When you're on vacation, you took your can off the shelf. You weren't there. It's like a little sticker showing you were in the office, right?
Yeah.
If you ever got left or you got fired, you got canned, take your can and get out.
Take your can.
And so that lasted quite a while until other corporate minds went in there and said, this isn't the best efficient use of space. Why are we doing this? But what's cool is Barbie built the greenhouse.
Right.
Entertainment people that did the movie stuff, action figures, stuff like that, did like in front of a movie marquee, and the games and puzzles guys built big game pieces in there. And eventually the corporate guys took it down. But it was fun.
and things change. And we're going to get towards the end of this segment, and rest assured, viewers, there's going to be a part 2 because we've got another 100 pictures coming, I think. And you talk about movies. I think this is a nice segue because we also want to talk about Redphin Productions before we get done today. And if you haven't had the chance, viewers, to watch the Snake and Mongoose movie, you got to do it. Carson, I swear, it's kind of, to me, like a version of American Graffiti wrapped around hot rodding, right? Because there's so many iconic people in there. And Rick, I think we got a couple of pictures from with Mongoose, and that's where you're presenting him that award.
When I gave him so you see in front is a futurized funny car, in the back is a yellow one.
Yeah.
And that's back in the days when Ron Capps was driving for Snake.
Right.
In the Skull days. So just for fun, the driver's name on that car says Caden Capps. That was Ron's, I think, 8-year-old son at the time, acting like Future, right?
So yeah.
I've known Snake and Mongoose since I was 12. Great friends.
Great friend. So, Rick, now in the movie, you might recognize this announcer. That is the one and the only Carson led. You did a great job up there in the booth, man.
It was a cameo deal, and it came about, again, because of a friend, a buddy of mine named Alan Paradise. When it came time to do the 35th anniversary for Snake and Mongoose and a big celebration in the NHR Museum, we went to Alan Paradise and said, look, we want to do about an 8 to 12-minute documentary on Snake and Mongoose, how they started, like black and white footage, old stuff.
Yeah.
And Alan's, he's a phenomenal writer, very creative. And so when I looked at this thing in raw form, I said, my God, Alan, this should be a movie. This is really got a good story to it. It's like Snake and the rivalry, good buddies becoming frenemies, competition does that to people, the loss of Jamie, his son, at the U.S. Nationals when Snake wins, which is the culmination of the movie. Anyway, Alan said, I don't know anything about making a movie. I said, dude, go online. You got to find a way to do a screenplay somehow. So Alan, I love Alan. He had done a couple magazine stories on my cars in the past.
Yep.
And so he and I have a great relationship. He goes, well, if I get this thing done, you got to be in the movie. And I said, look, don't screw up a good movie. So at first I was going to be a disgruntled old racer, kind of like an old John Force kind of guy, and I was going to be this and that. And it settled in that he wanted me to be the Lions track announcer. Another point for me in life where I started at a point and years later I come right back to that point, hanging out in Lions so much as a kid. When I was dating my wife, we went to the last drag race at Lions on December 2nd, 1972.
Wow.
And when they were tearing stuff apart and ripping down signs, my wife and I looked at each other like 1 in the morning, like, what is wrong with these people? Because it was like our backyard,
Well, yeah, sure.
So being able to be part of that movie was great.
Wow.
So Alan wrote me some stuff, and I got to do that in the booth filming. I got to do some voiceover work for them.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, driving up to Bakersfield when they had it decked out as Lions was like a trip down memory road.
Oh, yeah. And I think we got one more shot from the movie, and that is with the actor who played Snake, correct?
Jesse Williams, yeah. He was from Grey's Anatomy. He plays Snake, and I'll tell you what, he's a good actor, but he had that, I've always said this, Snake had that swagger. He had that cool confidence.
Yes, he did. Yeah, you bet.
Like, understated. He didn't have to tell you he was cool. You just looked at him and knew he was cool. And Jesse really personified that. And the guy who played McEwen was really good, too. I really felt they did a good job with those guys.
I totally agree.
Robin Brody was involved in that movie. And Holloway was one of the writers. Alan Paradise was one of the writers. I mean, some of those guys had worked on the Dogtown documentary about skateboarding. So they came with great credibility.
Perfect. And again, for all the viewers, if you haven't seen Snake and Mongoose, you got to see it. Before we close this segment today, Rick, I'd sent you one more picture. Let's see if you could pull that up. I think I sent it over to you this morning. See if you can find that. It's kind of that confirming that, it's 5 to 6 degrees of separation. It's that one with a plaque, Rick, if you can find it. Okay. All right. Mine got lost in the shelf. We'll find it later on. Tell us what's going on with Redphin Productions. This is an enterprise with you and your son Aaron, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're about 18 years into it. I was at Hot Wheels for 10 years, and so I started off my career in I thought I was going to be in medicine. I thought I was going to be a doctor. The funny story is, my family doctor, when I went to see him for a sports injury, asked what I was doing. I said, I'm getting ready to go to pre-med. He goes, you're making a big mistake. And he looked at me, he goes, it's the Ferrari, isn't it? It's the Dino. He had a Dino Ferrari.
Well, of course.
I was so naive, I thought the fast track to the Dino was being a doctor. So I changed my major. I worked in medical product design for a number of years. I got into technology. Through technology, I started my own business, doing design and engineering, got the Hot Wheels job from that. So After 10 years of Hot Wheels, I start to get a little wanderlust. I like to do different things. I like to build things, not necessarily maintain things. So my buddy Chip Foose was doing more and more TV, doing overhauling. He needed marketing and brand management. He needed an agent. So we left. And for a short period of time, I worked for a big licensing company in San Diego. That was just way too corporate. So we started Redphin. We're an automotive-based brand management company. So we handle everything from sponsorships, licensing, endorsements, appearances, TV contracts. When people want to use your name and image and likeness in wheels or tires or clothing, we do social media, we do branding. So we've been doing that for a while. We've worked with NBC Universal since movie 3 on Fast and Furious. Did a lot of work with Disney Cars Land, a lot of work with Chip. Number of clients. Got some new projects I'm working on right now with a buddy of mine who used to work on Gas Monkey. He's doing a new show. Working on an NHRA podcast show. That's in concept right now. We're reviewing that with NHRA. So, I like to keep busy.
So how do people find you in Redphin Productions?
Redphin is, I like it when I make dinner reservations under Redphin because I think I'm that mega real estate company. That's spelled with an F, Redfin. So it's kind of like the same thing of having the name Carson. When I went to see Jay Leno, they always thought I was Johnny Carson's kid. Not,
Exactly.
But Redphin is spelled Redphin. It's actually the name of my car. My 59 Bel Air is bright red.
Which is a sweet
You can just go to redphin.com or Google search Redphin, Redphin, and you can find our website, find our social media pages. We're fortunate to be doing what we're doing. I'm very blessed. I have friends who laugh and say, usually you start a career doing what you love. By the time you get older, you hate it. I'm lucky that my career's bounced around, just keep moving and changing. So
you're having fun with it. And before we end this segment, and there will be a part 2, I think it's only fair, Carson, because you have so much more stories, and we got some amazing photos. We want to talk about your family and some of the friends. You have a really long list of friends, which is amazing. So for somebody who somebody who really likes the idea of getting into this brand management and marketing, as an example, what suggestions would you have with them early in their career to get them on the right trajectory?
It's interesting now. I mean, I think the main thing, you got to have passion. This is a hard job to do if you're not passionate about it. Just like any job.
Point. Yeah.
If you're not passionate about what you do, it's hard to find the energy to do the extra work and to make those critical decisions. Like, I could go to bed now, or I need to work another hour on this proposal. Yeah. So, I mean, passion, involvement, and that starts organically. That starts through relationships and friends. I was lucky to start that as a kid. I think understanding the technologies and the social media platforms, what they're good for, how you tell a story. You tell the same story in different bite-sized chunks if you're doing Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it may be. You got to keep your value system consistent. You got to be you got to have your ethics and integrity. You got to be the guy. You got to be able to say no. That's the main thing. And then relationships. All mine really started from friends. I mean, I mean, it's a crazy story, but I met Mickey Thompson when I was 11 years old at Lions Drag Strip. And he became a giant influence on me years later. Bob Peterson, Peterson Publishing guys. I mean, I'm very thankful that these guys I met as a kid ended up influencing my career later.
I think that's a great message right there, Carson, for any of the viewers, especially when you're kind of younger in your career path. Never underestimate. Just essentially, you got to figure out who you are as a person. You want to maintain your integrity, and never overlook the importance of relationships and connectivity, because you never know when they're going to come back in your life, and they could be the next big step.
Yes, and to that point, I grew up without a dad. My dad died when I was 3.5. My mom did an amazing job, but the big thing for me is there were men in my life that mentored me, that guided me and gave me. I don't know if I was a needy kid or just enthusiastic, but I had guys that went out of their way. But the thing for me is, in your career, find a mentor, be a mentor. You've got to be that guy who brings it in from one side and passes it to the next. And so I do a lot of things with the college where I teach and different projects, and I take on an intern, and I take on a mentor relationship every year there and others. And because I'm the benefactor of a lot of guys that, I mean, I have a high school coach who was a big influence on me, who I still call for advice and I talk to. He's 85 years old, and I've known this guy over 55 years. He's a great guy. I'll mention his name, Bob Carriger, one of the greatest guys I know.
Too cool. I think that's a great way to leave part one of this ongoing road show of Carson Webb and Redphin Productions. I appreciate you being able to spend so much time with us today, and we'll be seeing you down. Oh, baby, anytime, man. And I'm sure we're going to see each other down the road again, and we got to get all the cameras ready. Until next time, Carson, enjoy the weekend, and God bless, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet you. You as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this week's episode of Car Stars and Roll Bars. Do me a personal favor. Do that social media thing like Carson Webb was just talking about. Like, share, and subscribe. Let everybody know what's going on with our show. And until next time, enjoy the ride.